When I thought of reading this morning, it was with much trepidation because here we are. It's after, well, the first day of this election, and we're not sure yet what the results will be, at least completely. But what we do know at this point is that once again, a majority of white people in the United States who cast their votes did so in favor of white supremacy, have consciously or unconsciously taken sides with a white supremacist structure. And I imagined I would be coming from some place of sadness and despair, and I'm strangely feeling neither of those things. Possibly it's because last night I had the chance to have a wonderful conversation with a dear friend and comrade Jamal Joseph, a former Black Panther. He's actually going to be on our panel here later today. And it was beautiful reunion. It was quieting for the soul. And one of the many things that we talked about was sort of the luxury of despair. It's something that is like melancholy, perhaps like a scab that you scratch at because there's some sort of strange enjoyment attached to it. But we have work to do. It's a beautiful day here in the Northeast of the United States. There are political ramifications for sure. There are consequences of what is happening. But the work has always been in front of us, and we need to put on our backpacks, head to the mountains, to prepare for the battles to come. That's always been in front of us, and if anything, this has once again stripped away any of the sort of liberal narratives that we might have secretly tried to convince ourselves, which just might be true about what the United States is or is not. The other thing that we talked about that I think also did away with some of my feelings of despair or anxiety was we talked about another one of our comrades, someone else we'll be talking to today, Jihad Abdulmumit, who is another Panther veteran, BLA veteran, who we'll be talking with today. And we both, Jamal and I both did time with Jihad. Jihad was a saint of the penitentiary. He just walked in grace through every place that he has traveled, and he commanded the respect of every single person in that penitentiary guard, official, Aryan Brotherhood, just every common social prisoner. All of us respected Jihad, and he's an impossible brother not to love. And we were reminded of a number of incidents that took place in the course of my time with Jihad and with Jamal's, where he had this ability to convert these former white supremacists, I mean, really truly ideologically driven, hard-baked racists, into new human beings. Sometimes they converted to Islam, other times they just walked away from their racist tribal affiliations. And he had this way of doing that was an extraordinary thing to behold. I wrote a poem while I was still in prison that I'm going to share with you. I hope I can get through it. That is about becoming a race trader, about maybe looking on the more positive side of it, about transformation, and it's about redemption. And it starts with a story about the old spiritual that Barack Obama made famous for singing Amazing Grace. There's a story behind that, and this is part of that. But this poem is called Solitary Mutineers. 1. The sound of grace was at first an iron lock surrendering with a shudder. Hasp hinges slapped open, one chain after another drawn through staples and cast aside across rough-hewn planks. Then Sweet silence as the slaver's captain watched his cargoes stumble up from the hold to become his passengers and his confessors. Sun-stabbed eyes blinking, legs buckling, they announced themselves as kin. Many stood paralyzed, awaiting what was certainly the next in the series of incomprehensible horrors. This one all the more cruel, all the more cunning, the longer it took to become manifest. Perhaps this was the end, as when the torturer removed his hood, no longer caring whether his face becomes known. Why else would they be brought to the deck, unbound, offered water with which to bathe, to drink? Yet the fishermen among them assured one and all that, yes, they were truly sailing into Africa's dawn. Grace was heard as sibilant waves against the outlying reefs of Bahame. The captain was there on the deck as they leapt into the surf, thin legs struggling against the water as in a dream. Some dared glances back over their shoulders, still waiting for the inevitable rifle shots, which didn't come. Was he tempted to follow, to strip off his clothes, his life, and join them in the warm shallows? We know only that he arrived in port with an empty hold and a song of redemption. 2. Grace came to Willie Post in the conventional way. An amazing white light filled the doorway of his small cell, he said, and called itself Allah. So powerful was this vision, he had no real choice but to make his way to Jummah prayers in the prison chapel. The descendants of other ships' cargo examined this one-time Aryan gangbanger with right suspicion. But there it was, week after week at Jummah, and 5 times a day prostrate in prayer. For the Aryans and the Nazis, he simply ceased to exist. Willie's dead. But the man the Imam called Subi, the dawn, breathed deeply and slipped into his new precarious life, poised between treason and incredulity. Subi found protection not with the Muslims, but in his fearless good humor. He was someone whose laughter you sought out, a precious prison resource. And then, as if to strengthen his eccentric aura, he took upon himself the care of the feral cats that skulked around Leavenworth's infamous walls and cell block courtyards. The kindred predators lived poorly then on mice and what they could scavenge. The wardens exterminated them in waves like rats or roaches. I've lived in cell blocks where we secreted fugitive kittens for months at a time, feeding them from the mess hall, hiding them during count, and convincing the guard he didn't see what he thought he saw. But there always came the day when the shakedown crew couldn't tolerate the affront, and some hack would emerge from the block, triumphant, holding our ship's mascot by the scruff of its neck, dangling it like dripping garbage. Subi changed all that, surreptitiously at first, producing from a slit in his coat lining a plastic bottle of milk he'd filled in the mess hall. Slowly, the cats, easily a dozen, abandoned their wide-eyed skittishness for the daily surety of a free meal. With the money he saved from his factory job and the help of some good-natured guards, the kittens went to the vet in town for their shots. The females were spayed and the sick and injured were routinely treated and returned to general population. The cats never lost their wildness, would not deign to be petted or handled, but their bellies grew round, their coats plush. They fell into their own prison routines, Felis convictus. You could watch these furry mounds make their way around the compound, too fat to righteously sneak up on anything, familiar but still improbable sights. They were as jarringly out of place as toddlers in the prison yard. Animals walking about at will, while the humans were locked in cages and counted. Sinuous curvatures in a world of hardened right angles, symbols of longed for domestic comfort, the objects of an alarming tenderness from those who need have none. Alcatraz had its birdman, Leavenworth our catman. But Subi was no bookish recluse. I can see him in his kufi with cutout socks rolled up over the swastikas tattooed on his forearms, standing outside the tray window of the mess hall's dish room, holding open a plastic bag for donations of scrap meat. Always smiling, he mutely challenged his former Aryan brothers who passed by. The bags were quickly filled. Standing at the mouth of his cave, cats at his feet like some garrulous St. Francis in a field jacket, who could hurt Zubi? No one at Leavenworth. So they sent him to the street. We wondered how it was for him after 23 years inside. The newspaper article said that he was living with a family in northwest Missouri and working in an animal shelter. An odd symmetry. How did he come to terms with feeding his beloved cats now in cages? Could St. Francis become a zookeeper? And how could Northwest Missouri comprehend Subi? There are no mosques, not even the hatred against which he might have defined himself, just the slack-jawed banality of amnesiac America. Outside the bank, the police did not seem to recognize that they were being fired on by a saint. Nor would they have been thinking about redemption. When they heard his final shot, followed by quaking stillness, Subi put Willie to sleep. Three, amazing how sick the sound of charging feet on the tier below, of steel pounding into flesh 28, 29, 30, 31 times, they said. How slick the floor with more blood than I thought could have forsaken a man still running. Grace was nowhere to be seen or heard on the way to the interviews. We were led down the stairway past a record of desperate struggle, lichenous, ferric shadows like the human form negatives blasted onto the walls of Hiroshima. The lieutenant set an ID card before me, and I fought the roaring of my own blood inside my head, trying to make out an unfamiliar name beneath eyes that implored my recognition. No, no, no. Sorry, I didn't see anything. But later I recalled the gaunt, shuffling figure as he emerged from the hole, awakening from a trance, with a new growth of beard and a Quran. Once he had been a skinhead, scrawled swastikas on synagogues, torched a roller rink that spanned the divide of Chicago's suburban apartheid. The imam named him Dia, light. Now he was, as you believed, a race traitor, a martyr, a snitch, crazy, dead. None of us knew him. His voice did not carry far. 4. Living in grace requires such strength. And how hard it is to go on singing when one sings alone. The sound of grace is lost to those who will not listen with a stillness of the soul. The songs are lost to all of us when we fail to hear the cries. when we fail to hear the cries of the solitary mutineers cast out and swimming for Dahomey. Let's fire 1,000 poems.